They say seeing is believing, but you'll feel blessed to never lay your eyes on what is haunting this Catholic school. Netflix's Eerie movie review. Hey, Twisted people, it's your Twisted Girl here, and today I am doing a movie review of Eerie. Not to be confused with Eerie, Indiana, which was an awesome short-lived series. They should have gave it another season, totally. This horror film is set in 1995 Philippines. Something is terrorizing the students at the St. Lucia Academy for Girls. An unexpected gruesome death of a student threatens the existence of the school. Guidance counselor and clairvoyant, Pat, is determined to uncover the secrets surrounding the school and the monster that walks the halls. Eerie is a beautifully filmed ghost story with a very chilling mystery that unfolds throughout. Now, the pacing is a bit slow at times, but the engrossing and haunting atmosphere more than makes up for it. Atmosphere. Now, I admit that before I watched this film, I actually came across it when I was looking for, new stuff on Netflix. And I saw this film and some articles written around it was saying that people say they can't sit through the entirety of this movie. It's that scary. So usually, okay, as a horror fan, I'm kind of like, yeah, I take that as a challenge. Let's see about that. So I went in there, not necessarily with high expectations. I kind of went in there thinking, oh my gosh, maybe there's been a PR campaign to make it sound like it's, as intense, and then I'm probably going to be semi-disappointed. But I will admit that the atmosphere of this film definitely delivered. It is a super creepy film. It's very creepy, it's very haunting, and it's beautifully shot in a way that it's like that horror, but it's not like gritty necessarily. It's like picturesque horror, and not so much so where it's like it's so pretty that you can't be scared from it, but like the shots and the looks of the characters and the, positioning of objects and things makes for a pretty picture, but also a haunting picture. Now, in that same regard, I will say that if you're looking for jump scares or something that's going to make you go like jump in the middle of the night or something like that, not necessarily. The movie doesn't rely on jump scares, and the jump scares that are there are a little bit predictable, but I don't think that is necessarily a detriment to it, which is why this is still in the pro section, because I feel like even though they were predictable, it was more like, okay, let's give them that, but more so the atmosphere is what is so creepy. The atmosphere is what is so chilling. And because it relies more on that, on building an atmosphere, on making even the most subtle things like washing your face. Oh my gosh, I never knew I'd get so creeped out by a character simply washing their face because of just how eerie the atmosphere in this movie is. But subtle things like that really work so well that you won't notice that there's not a lot of jump scares. You won't care. Plot. Now, let me preface this by saying I am really curious, because this movie made me curious, about is there any movie that's maybe not a comedy that shows Catholic schools or the Catholic religion not to be super creepy and like full of ominous horror necessarily? No offense to Catholics, like that's not even me throwing a shot at. Like, I'm really wondering, because every horror movie I've ever seen that had taken place around Catholicism or around some academy with nuns and things like that, it just really doesn't work out for the people in it. And I don't know what that's about. Maybe because Catholicism is such an old religion and it has so much there in terms of symbolism that it's kind of ripe to kind of dig into it for horror purposes. But I just really had to think about it. I was like, is there any horror movie I've seen where Catholicism actually like works in the favor of the characters necessarily? Maybe the Conjuring universe, because Ed and Lorraine are very religious, and in that regard, maybe that's about it. But yes, in using the setting of a Catholic all-girl school, the movie really kind of uses that as a backdrop to tell a very interesting story about individualism, about what it means to form bonds and friendship, what's pain, bullying, things of that nature that tell a very interesting, engrossing mystery that unfolds throughout the whole entire movie, where it's not super predictable. When I thought I had it figured out, they threw me for a loop, and that happened like 1 to 3 times, where I thought I had it figured out, and then something else would happen, and I'd be like, oh, I guess I didn't figure this out yet. And it did it in such a way that didn't feel super contrived either, where they, some movies try to throw you off on purpose, and it's so glaring they're trying to throw you off, where it's like, yeah, you're just throwing this in here to throw me off. But I don't feel like that was the case in this movie. It was just like, as the story was being told and you were getting to know the characters and the happenings, things would just happen where it'd be like, oh, wow, okay, I wasn't expecting that, or you took this plot in a different direction, which I appreciated. Strong women cast. I'm not going to say I love the characters, because that wasn't what it was about, but they drew you in. All of them were so, even in the subtle times where, there wasn't a lot of talking that went on in this film, but even when they did speak or through their actions, you got to know all of the characters, the young students, the older women. It was like, wow, these are fully fledged characters in a way. Like, even though I'm not spending 3 hours plus with them, I can sense that they created such an atmosphere that I felt like they existed before this film, if that makes sense. You know how some characters, you're like, this is such a stereotypical generic character that they are literally in existence because of this plot and movie. And then you get to know some characters where they just resonate so well that you're like, this is a fully fledged, like, being. Pacing. Now, although I will say, as I've said, that this movie was beautifully shot, haunting moments, just really good acting overall, there were times where it lagged, and there were times, I'm not gonna say I was tempted to look at my phone, but I was kind of like, okay, like, I feel like we've kind of slowed things down, or we are drawing out this particular scene for some reason. I'm not sure why. Now, that wasn't a lot of times, but it did happen throughout. Now, mind you, this movie's only an hour and a half long, but for whatever reason, because of those lagging times, it felt longer, if that makes sense. And so that was a little bit of a drawback, because other than those moments, the movie was really engrossing. Messaging. Now, there's things that happened in the Philippines regarding the debate around the death penalty, which has been an ongoing thing in that country for some decades. And because this was happening in 1995 Philippines, I think they had just reinstated the death penalty in 1993. And so that's referenced a few times in the film. And certain things happen to the characters where, like, maybe they're framed for murder and stuff, so they might be facing the death penalty, some of the characters. And I'm not sure if the movie was trying to make some sort of, like, messaging to kind of say, look at these people that are on death row who might be getting, killed with the death penalty, and they might be innocent because of some dark entity. Not necessarily because of some dark entity, but let's say, like, these people could be innocent, who knows what for, but maybe that's the messaging. Like, maybe it's an anti-death penalty kind of message there. Now, mind you, no horror picture has to have a message. I was just really confused as to why that was a poignant thing, and why it had to take place in 1995 during that time frame of, the death penalty being reinstated in 1993. And since then, if you want a mini history lesson, there's been continued back and forth about the death penalty. And as recent as 2016, because I had to look this up because I was really curious as to why this was in this movie. In 2016, I think the campaigning future president basically said they wanted to reinstate the death penalty, because after a bit in the 90s it went away again, or maybe the early 2000s, and then it got put back in 2016, but like the Catholic Church is still against it. So yeah, I don't know if it was just like a, just putting it into historical context of why they did that, or why that was referenced. Yeah, that's gonna get to me, because I love history, I love, like, facts, I love, politics and all that stuff, and horror. But I was really wondering why that was such a thing to note necessarily. So it's not a con. I'm just saying that if you also pay attention to stuff like that, it will confuse you, which might lead to slight frustration. The main trigger warning in this film is suicide. There is talk of suicide. There are references to suicide. There are suicide scenes. So, yes. Is Eerie twisted approved? Yes. Eerie is definitely twisted approved. I think this is a really cool ghost story set in a cool place with the whole references, slightly confusing messaging behind it of why that historical context, but nonetheless, it is a really cool ghost story, and I think you will be creeped out by it genuinely enough to get a thrill from it. Okay, y'all, so that is my review of Eerie, the movie that you can now catch on Netflix that is playing right now, so you can stream it. And when you do, let me know what you think of the movie. Do you agree that it's a good ghost story? Are you wondering also why they put it in 1995 Philippines necessarily? And if that was really significant, let's debate that. Also, maybe since I couldn't figure it out, do you know with that question I asked about Catholicism being shown in a less ominous dark entity kind of light in horror films? Name them down below. Show me your horror prowess when it comes to your knowledge. Comment down below. Let me know your thoughts and also your thoughts about the movie. And also, be sure to subscribe so that you're the first to know when I post my videos. Thanks for watching.